You will never see the children again, she laughed. That laugh. It wasn't a sound of joy. It was the sound of a lock clicking shut, of a cage door slamming. It echoed in the sterile, fluorescent lit courtroom, cutting through the judge's droning voice. My wife, Sarah, the woman I had built a life with, was looking at me, not with sadness or remorse or even anger. She looked at me with the cold, triumphant satisfaction of a predator that had just cornered its prey. The judge's gavel fell. It didn't sound like a bang. It sounded like a trapdoor opening beneath my feet, dropping me into an abyss. He'd just awarded her everything. The $5 million New York brownstone I had poured my inheritance into. Full custody of my two children, Maya and Leo. And me? I was painted as unstable, reckless, a danger. Her lawyers had been brilliant, using fabricated emails and coached witnesses to dismantle my character, piece by agonizing piece. And Sarah had sat there, a perfect picture of a terrified victim, dabbing at dry eyes. The betrayal was so perfect, so complete, it was almost impressive. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a campaign. Months, maybe years of meticulous planning. While I was working late to fund our lifestyle, she was meeting with lawyers. While I was reading bedtime stories to our kids, she was meticulously forging the very reality that would be used to take them away from me. As we left the courtroom, her lawyer, a shark in a $2,000 suit, gave me a polite, condescending nod. Sarah just glided past, her victory complete. I was officially erased from my own life. My life was over, or so I thought. What happened next changed everything, proving that my devastating divorce was only the beginning of a much darker story. If you're invested in seeing how a man rebuilds from absolute zero, stick around, because this story is just getting started. You won't want to miss where this goes. I didn't even have enough money left for a flight. The joint accounts had been frozen and drained. I sold my watch, the one my father gave me, for a one-way bus ticket to Toronto. It was the only place I had left to go. My mother had passed away 2 years prior, and her small post-war bungalow sat empty, a silent monument to a life I had left behind. But I couldn't even afford the upkeep on the main house. The heat was off. The air was frigid and still. So I descended into the basement. It was damp, smelling of mildew and forgotten memories. A single bare bulb hung from a rafter, casting weak yellow light on the concrete floor and the stacks of boxes that held the remnants of my mother's quiet life. This was my new reality. From a $5 million palace in the heart of civilization to a cold, subterranean room in the suburbs of a city I no longer knew. The first few weeks were a blur of self-pity and consuming emptiness. The silence was the worst part. In New York, our home was always filled with the sound of the kids laughing, of music playing, of life. Here, the only sound was the groan of the house settling and the drip, drip, drip of a leaky pipe. I spent my days staring at the cinder block walls, replaying that courtroom scene over and over. Sarah's laugh, the cold, indifferent face of the judge, the confused, scared faces of my children the last time I'd seen them, when she told them I was sick and had to go away. She had poisoned them against me, turning me into a monster in their minds. I was broken, a 40-year-old man sleeping on a cot in his dead mother's basement, with nothing to his name but a box of clothes and a court order forbidding him from contacting his own children. One afternoon, desperate for anything to do besides drown in my own misery, I decided to clear out the attached garage. It was less of a garage and more of a tomb for rusted tools and things my mother could never bring herself to throw away. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light from the dirty window. I started moving heavy boxes of old newspapers and Christmas decorations. Tucked in the back corner, behind a stack of bald tires and a heavy termite-eaten workbench, I saw it. A section of the concrete floor looked different. A newer, smoother patch. I knelt, my fingers tracing the outline. It was a small metal panel painted to blend in with the floor. I pried it up with a nearby crowbar. Beneath it, sunk into the foundation itself, was a small black combination safe. My heart hammered. I had no idea this existed. My mother was a librarian. She baked cookies and volunteered at the church. She wasn't the kind of person who embedded safes in the garage floor. My hands trembled. A combination. I tried her birthday, nothing. Her anniversary, nothing. I tried my father's birthday, nothing. I sat back, frustrated. What would she use? Then a thought, so simple I dismissed it. I tried my own birthday. The lock clicked. It was a heavy metallic thunk that seemed to echo in the silent garage. I pulled the small, heavy door open. There wasn't much inside. No jewelry, no stacks of cash, just a single thick, yellowed envelope. My name was written on the front in my mother's unmistakable, elegant handwriting. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The message was short, and as I read the first line, the blood in my veins turned to ice. It said, "If you're reading this, they finally found you. If you're reading this, they finally found you." I read the words again and again. The damp, cold air of the garage seemed to get even colder. My breath fogged in front of me. They? Who were they, and how did they find me? My mind raced, trying to connect the dots between this cryptic message from my dead mother and the catastrophic implosion of my life. A divorce. A brutal, calculated divorce. Is that what she meant? Was Sarah? Was she one of them? Or just a tool they used? The idea was insane. My mother was a librarian, not a spy. My father was an accountant who died of a heart attack when I was in college. This was a mistake. It had to be. But my mother didn't make mistakes. She was the most meticulous person I'd ever known. Her handwriting on the note was firm, not the shaky script of an old woman. This was written with purpose. My trembling hands went back into the small, cold safe. Beneath the envelope, there was more. A lot more. My fingers brushed against paper, stacks of it. I pulled them out. They were bundles of $100 bills wrapped in simple rubber bands. I quickly counted one stack. 10,000. There were 5 stacks. $50,000. To the man I was a month ago, this was a decent bonus. To the man standing in a frozen garage, sleeping in a basement, it was a lifeline. It was air. Underneath the cash was a small oilskin pouch. I unrolled it. Inside were 3 passports. I opened the first one. The name was Daniel Kincaid, but the picture was me, just younger, taken maybe 10 years ago. I looked happy, or at least less broken. The second one said Michael Shaw. Again, my picture. The third, Robert Cole. All of them looked official, the laminate perfect, the watermarks clean. My mother, the quiet librarian, had a stash of high-quality fake passports and $50,000 in cash hidden in her garage floor. A wave of dizziness hit me, and I had to lean against the workbench. My whole life, my entire understanding of my past was cracking open. My father, the boring, gentle man who taught me how to ride a bike, who was he? My mother, the woman who made me soup when I was sick, who was she? The letter wasn't finished. I'd only read the first line. I turned the page over. "My dearest son," it continued, "I have lived every day of your life in fear of this moment. There is so much I never told you to protect you. Your father was not an accountant. He was complicated. He worked for powerful people, the kind of people who don't have names, only influence. He wasn't a bad man, but he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. He tried to get out, and he took something with him when he left. Something they would kill for? They faked his heart attack and have been hunting for what he stole ever since. They've been hunting for you." I dropped the letter. My legs gave out, and I sat hard on the freezing concrete. This couldn't be real. This was the plot of a movie, not my life. They hadn't just found me. My success, my life in New York, the brownstone. I wasn't just living the dream, I was a sitting duck. I had painted a giant flashing target on my back. And Sarah. The betrayal suddenly felt so much darker. Her infidelity, the lies, the courtroom drama. Was it all a performance? Was that shark like lawyer hired by her or for her? The way she'd systematically dismantled my life, stripping me of my home, my money, and my children, it wasn't just greed. It was strategic. They had isolated me, bankrupted me, and neutralized me. They had turned me into a man nobody would believe, a crazy ex husband ranting from his mother's basement. It was the perfect crime. I picked up the letter, my hands shaking so hard I could barely read. I don't know who they used to get to you, a new friend, a lover, maybe even your wife. They are masters of using a person's own life against them. They wanted you broken, isolated, and penniless. They wanted you to have nowhere to turn. But you are not alone. I have given you a few tools. The money is to start over, to disappear. The passports are your way out. But there is one more thing. It's the only weapon I can give you. It's what your father died for. It's what they're still looking for. My eyes darted back to the safe. In the very back, almost invisible in the shadow, was a small black USB stick. It was tiny, the size of my thumbnail. This was it. This was the something my father stole. The reason he was killed. The reason my mother lived in fear. And the reason my wife, my children, and my entire life had been stolen from me. I was no longer just a victim of a bad divorce. I was the son of a man who knew too much, and I was holding the one thing in the world that these powerful, nameless people were terrified of. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach. But now it was mixed with something else. Something hot, sharp, and focused. Rage. The $50,000 felt heavy in my backpack. Every person who glanced at me on the street, every car that slowed down, felt like a threat. My mother's note had rewired my brain. I wasn't just a heartbroken man anymore, I was prey. I needed a computer, but I couldn't just walk into an Apple store. My credit cards were likely flagged, my identity toxic. I found a small, hole-in-the-wall computer repair shop across town, the kind of place that still had flip phones in the window. I paid cash for a refurbished, high-spec laptop, powerful but completely anonymous. I paid extra to have the hard drive wiped clean and a fresh, privacy-focused operating system installed while I waited. Back in the basement, the air felt thick with tension. The single bare bulb buzzed overhead. I sat on the cot, the new laptop on my knees, the tiny black USB stick in my hand. It was the key to everything or a bomb that would blow up in my face. As I stared at the blank login screen, my past started to bubble up, not as memories, but as warnings. I remembered being 8 years old, sitting in a park with my mother. She'd point to a man on a bench and say, "It's a game, honey. Tell me everything about him in 10 seconds. Go." I'd list off his shoes, his newspaper, the color of his hat. She'd praise me, but her eyes were never smiling. They were scanning, always scanning. I remembered the vacations. Waking up in the middle of the night, my mother pulling me out of bed, her voice a tense whisper. "We're going on an adventure. Pack your favorite toys, now." We'd drive for hours in silence, ending up in a generic motel 3 states over, just for a change of scenery. I always thought she was eccentric, spontaneous. Now I saw the truth. She wasn't spontaneous, she was running. My father. I tried to picture him, but his face was fuzzy. He was the accountant who was always on a business trip. The man who my mother claimed died of a heart attack. But now I knew that was a lie. He had been erased, just like they were trying to erase me. The parallels were sickening. They used Sarah, a weapon of intimacy, to do to me what a heart attack did to my father. They took my home, my resources, and, most cruelly, my children. poisoning their minds against me. A new surge of anger burned through me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the father I never knew and the mother who spent her entire life looking over her shoulder. I needed to know what was on this drive, but first I needed to know what she was doing. My ex-wife, Sarah. I connected the laptop to the weak basement Wi-Fi using a public VPN. I went to a high-end real estate site for New York. It didn't take long to find. There it was, our brownstone. My brownstone listed for sale. Price, $5.5 million, motivated seller. She wasn't just living in it. She was cashing out. She was liquidating the asset, preparing to take the money and my children and disappear. The court had given her the house, but this felt like theft all over again. The urgency was suffocating. She was moving fast. That meant I had to move faster. I looked at the USB stick. The time for grieving was over. The time for self-pity was a luxury I couldn't afford. My mother had spent her life protecting me from this. She had left me money, passports, and this one, single weapon. I plugged the USB stick into the laptop. The screen flickered and a single password-protected icon appeared. This was it. The ghosts of my past were no longer just memories, they were a roadmap, and I was about to follow it. A single password prompt blinked on the screen. The drive was locked down tight. I typed in my mother's birthday. Access denied. My father's. Access denied. The anniversary, my birthday, the street I grew up on. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied. My frustration grew. This wasn't just a password, it was a test, one my mother had set for me. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think back, past the pain, past the memories of a normal childhood. I thought about the games, the license plates, the quick descriptions. Then one memory surfaced, crystal clear. I was about 10. We had taken one of our sudden vacations to a motel in Vermont. It was the middle of winter. My mother sat me down at the cheap laminate table and pointed to the phone. Every hotel, every motel has a code for an outside line, she said, her voice serious, not playful. Usually it's 9, but sometimes it's different. You always find the code. She then made me memorize the motel's address, the room number, and the phone number over and over. You never know when you'll need a piece of information, even a useless one. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. The address was 1140. The room was 22. The date was March 8th. I tried 11-4U to 20308. Access denied. I tried the other way. 030810 4022. Access denied. I was about to give up when I remembered her other obsession, security. Always reverse, she'd say, talking about locking the door. Turn the key, then turn it back a little. Settle the tumblers. I reversed the entire string. 2204 8030. The screen froze for a second, then flashed. Access granted. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break a rib. The drive opened, revealing dozens of encrypted files and a single unencrypted text file named Read Me. My hands were shaking. I clicked it. The note was from my father. His words, his actual words, reaching out to me from the grave. Son, it began, if you are reading this, your mother succeeded. I am so sorry for the life I burdened you with. These files are my confession and my proof. They are a group I used to work for. We called it the cadre. We weren't spies. We were financial predators. We found people with power, judges, politicians, regulators, and we found their weaknesses. We used that leverage to strip assets, manipulate markets, and rig legal outcomes. It was a gold mine. I scrolled down, my blood turning to ice. I wanted out, he wrote. I started collecting proof, a way to ensure my and my family's safety. They found out. Your mother got you out, but I couldn't. This drive is the insurance. It's all here. Offshore account numbers, secret ledgers, audio recordings of bribes. It is their complete and total destruction. They will kill you for it. Do not trust anyone. Do not believe in coincidence. I spent the next hour clicking through the files using the master password he provided. It was all there. Names. So many names. High ranking officials in New York, senators, bankers. And then I saw it. A folder labeled NY Judiciary. I opened it. A list of names. And about halfway down, I saw him. The judge. My judge. The man who had looked at me with such disdain, who had called me unstable. He was on their payroll. My case wasn't just unfair, it was fixed from the moment Sarah filed for divorce. A wave of nausea hit me. Sarah, was she one of them? Or just a pawn? I scanned another ledger, this one detailing payments to various contractors and consulting firms. My eyes landed on a name I recognized instantly. The law firm that had represented Sarah. The sharks in the $2,000 suits. They had received 3 separate payments from a shell corporation listed on my father's drive. Payments that started 2 months before. Sarah ever told me she was unhappy. This was never a divorce. It was an operation, a strategic extraction. They had used my wife's greed and resentment as a cover to neutralize me, to get me out of the house they believed might contain my father's secrets. They had me declared unstable and bankrupted me, not just to punish me, but to destroy my credibility. Who would believe a crazy man in a basement ranting about a vast conspiracy? They hadn't just found me, as my mother's note said. They had been watching me my entire life, waiting for the right moment to strike. And they had struck. But they made one mistake. They didn't find the drive. I had it. And now I knew their names. I had the truth. But the truth was useless. I was one man in a basement, and they, the cadre, were a network of powerful, untouchable people. If I just leaked the drive, they would hunt me down and silence me before the files ever made the news. They would spin it as the ravings of a disgruntled, unstable ex-husband. They had already built the perfect narrative to discredit me. My father's note said, "Trust no one." But my mother's actions said something different. She had left me the tools, believing I could fight back. I spent hours, maybe days, scouring the USB drive again, but this time I wasn't looking for evidence. I was looking for help. Buried deep in a subfolder labeled Contingencies, I found a single encrypted text file. The password for this one was different. It wasn't a memory, it was a question. Who was your shield? The answer was instant. Mother. The file opened. It contained a single, heavily encrypted email address and a code name. Helios. A short note from my father was attached. If the worst happens, Helios is the only one who also saw the blueprint. He can be trusted, but he is a ghost. He will only respond to one signal. The signal was a phrase. The architect's son has found the blueprints. This was it, a terrifying choice. Was Helios still alive? Or was this email address a trap? A digital honeypot left by the cadre to catch anyone who found this drive? My father said to trust him, but my father was dead, and I was alive. I looked at the real estate listing again. The status on my brownstone had changed. Sale pending. Sarah was in the final stages. She was about to cash out and vanish with my children and $5 million. I was out of time. I took half of the remaining cash. I drove for 2 hours to a different city. I found another small computer shop and bought another burner laptop paying cash. I went to a university library connected to their public Wi-Fi through 3 separate VPNs and created a new anonymous email account. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This one click would decide everything. It would either be my salvation or my signature on my own death warrant. I typed the subject, inquiry. I typed the message. The architect's son has found the blueprints. I hit send. The silence for the next 48 hours was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. I didn't sleep. I just sat in the basement staring at the laptop screen, hitting refresh until my finger was numb. The sale pending sign mocked me. I was failing. Just as my laptop battery was about to die, a new email popped up. The sender was Helios. The message was short. I've been waiting for your father's ghost for 20 years. What took you so long? We arranged a secure, encrypted video call. The man who appeared on my screen was older, in his late 60s, with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. His eyes, though, were sharp and alert. He was in a room that looked as sparse as my basement. You look like him, he said, his voice a low gravel. Your father. He was the best of us. He confirmed everything. He was Helios, my father's partner and best friend. They had both joined the cadre young, thinking they were financial wizards. But Helios watched as the cadre's greed turned malignant. Your father, Helios said, he wasn't just an analyst. He was the architect of their whole system. And when he tried to dismantle it, they couldn't let that stand. They made an example of him. Helios had been in hiding ever since, a ghost in the system, waiting for this moment. He wasn't just one man, he had a small network of other ghosts, other victims of the cadre, all waiting for the ammunition to fight back. They've been watching you your whole life, Helios explained. They knew your mother had something. They just didn't know what or where. They used your wife's greed to flush you out, to search your house. They never imagined the prize was in a quiet suburb in Toronto. So what now? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I leak the drive? Helios laughed, a dry, harsh sound. No, that's a firecracker. We're going to build a bomb, a series of bombs. We are going to take them apart, piece by piece, just like they did to you. And we'll start with the person who hurt you the most, your wife. I want her to feel what I felt, I said, my voice raw, the words tasting like ash. I want her to lose everything. I want her to be in a basement with nothing. Helios shook his head on the secure video call. His expression was calm, almost cold. No. You want more than that? You want your children back. You want your name cleared. Revenge is a fire that burns the person holding it. We're not after revenge, son. We're after justice. The house is just leverage, and we are about to pull the lever. He explained the plan. We couldn't use the files on the USB drive directly. Not yet. That was our nuclear weapon. And if we used it now, the cadre would scorch the earth to bury us. But, Helios said, a thin smile on his face, your father's files are a map. They tell us exactly where to dig. The cadre paid her lawyer. Why? Let's find out. Helios went offline for a few hours. The silence in the basement was suffocating. I paced back and forth, staring at the real estate listing on my laptop. The words sale pending were a dagger in my chest. It meant she was days, maybe hours, from getting the money and vanishing. Then, Helios's icon lit up. He was back. My contact in New York. She's a ghost who used to be a forensic accountant for the SEC. She's very, very good. And she found it. He sent a file. It seems your wife's betrayal had layers. She wasn't just colluding with her lawyer, she was sleeping with him. He sent me copies of hotel receipts, a high-end boutique hotel in Soho. Dates, times, all lining up with the late-night meetings she'd told me she was having. But that wasn't the bomb. The bomb was what Helios's contact found next. She didn't just lie to you, Helios said, his voice hard. She lied out of the court. And so did her lawyer. He sent a new file. It was a wire transfer confirmation. Sarah had moved over $200,000 from one of our joint savings accounts to a secret offshore account. 6 months before, she filed for divorce. Her lawyer, the same shark who was her lover, had helped her set it up. In court, they had both signed financial disclosure forms swearing that account didn't exist. They had claimed I drained our accounts, and this proof was used to paint me as financially reckless. This, Helios said, is our opening. She committed perjury. He suborned perjury and violated every ethical rule in the book. This is enough to get the entire divorce decree thrown out. We didn't go to the police. We didn't go to the corrupt judge. Helios's team drafted two anonymous, highly detailed packages. They were works of art. They included the hotel receipts, the offshore account numbers, the wire transfer records, and a scathing memo laying out the timeline of fraud. They didn't threaten, they just stated facts. One package was sent by secure courier to the New York State Bar Association, demanding the lawyer's immediate disbarment for fraud, perjury, and a conflict of interest that was almost comical in its audacity. The second package was sent to the legal department of the bank that was financing the new buyer of the brownstone. The package warned them, in no uncertain terms, that the property they were about to fund was the subject of a massive criminal fraud and that the sale would be contested. "It's done," Helios said. "Now we wait. This will stop the sale cold, and it will get her attention." I sat at my laptop, my finger on the mouse, clicking refresh on the real estate page. Sale pending. Refresh. Sale pending. Refresh. I felt a cold dread. What if we were too late? What if the sale had already closed? I was staring at the real estate page when it finally happened. I clicked refresh and the sale pending tag vanished. It was replaced by two beautiful blood red words, off market. My breath caught. It was the first real victory. The first tangible proof that I wasn't just screaming into the void. The bank had pulled the plug. The sale was dead. Sarah wasn't getting her $5.5 million payday. She was trapped in a house she couldn't sell, facing an investigation from the state bar that was about to destroy her lover and her own credibility. I wanted to celebrate, to scream, but Helios's voice on the secure line was ice cold. "Good," he said, his face a mask. "Her part of the game is frozen. Now we begin the real war. It's time to rattle the cadre." I thought we would leak the whole drive, a massive data dump that would expose everyone. Helios laughed at the idea. "That's how amateurs get killed," he said. "The media can't handle a story that big. They'll dismiss it. No, we do this surgically. We give them 100 small cuts, not one big one. We'll make them bleed out and they won't even know where to put the bandages." Helios explained the plan. His network of ghosts included a woman named Cygnus, a once famous investigative journalist who had been discredited by the cadre years ago. She was now running an anonymous, subscription-based news site that was notorious for breaking stories the mainstream media was too scared to touch. "She's been waiting for this," Helios said. "She's hungry, and she hates these people more than we do." Our first target was a U.S. senator from New York. His name was all over my father's files. He was the cadre's political puppet, about to push a bill through Congress that would deregulate the very industry they used to launder their money. From my father's drive, we pulled one perfect, undeniable file, a 45-second audio clip. It was the senator, his voice unmistakable, negotiating the price of his vote with a cadre operative. It was so clear, so blatant, it made my stomach turn. Helios's team sanitized the file, stripping all metadata that could trace it back to the drive. They packaged it with a short, anonymous note explaining exactly what it was. Then, using a complex chain of dead drops and secure relays, they sent it to Cygnus. We didn't have to wait long. 24 hours later, her website's homepage changed. A blaring headline. "Senator, name redacted, caught on tape selling his vote." The audio file was right there on a loop, for the whole world to hear. The effect was instantaneous. It was a digital explosion. The mainstream media, which had ignored Cygnus for years, couldn't ignore this. They were forced to cover the story. The senator's office issued a denial, calling the audio a deep fake. But the damage was done. His bill was dead on arrival, and the Justice Department, under public pressure, was forced to open an investigation. The cadre was stunned, but we didn't give them time to breathe. As they were desperately trying to contain the political firestorm, Helios launched the second attack. We took a different piece of data, a complex ledger showing illegal offshore transfers, and sent it to a different ghost. This one was a financial crimes regulator, a man deep inside the SEC who the cadre thought was one of theirs, but who was secretly feeding information to Helios. Suddenly, a major Wall Street bank, a cornerstone of the cadre's financial empire, was hit with a surprise, unannounced audit. Their stock tumbled. The bank's CEO, a key cadre member, was blindsided. "You see?" Helios said, a rare glint of satisfaction in his eyes. "We've started two fires in two totally different parts of their world. They don't see a single enemy, they see enemies everywhere. They're looking at each other, wondering who the traitor is. They are panicking, and a panicking enemy makes mistakes." He was right, but his next words sent a chill down my spine. "But now they're truly awake. They know your father's insurance policy is in play. They will start hunting for the source. They will tear the world apart to find it. Stay dark, son. The real danger starts now." Sarah was in a full-blown panic. I knew it because I was watching her, though not directly. Helios's team had provided me with a secure feed, not of her, but of her digital footprint. The brownstone was back on the market, but with a massive notice of list pendants attached to the listing, a public warning that the property's title was in dispute. No buyer would touch it. The sale wasn't just dead, it was buried. Her lawyer, her lover, was fighting for his career. The state bar had launched an aggressive investigation. He was no longer her attack dog, he was a cornered animal, desperate to save himself. And that meant Sarah was finally completely on her own. She was trapped in her gilded cage, hemorrhaging money on a house she couldn't sell, with her lies exposed to the bank and the bar. "She's distracted," Helios said, his voice coming through my secure earpiece. "Now is the time to file the appeal. While her guard is down, and the cadre is too busy putting out their own fires to protect their pawn." Helios's ghosts found me a lawyer. Not a flashy shark, but a quiet, older woman in a different district. A legal bulldog who had a reputation for dismantling fraud cases. She was horrified by my story. We didn't give her the files on the cadre. We didn't tell her about my father. We gave her only what she needed, the irrefutable proof of Sarah's perjury. The offshore bank account, the wire transfers dated before the divorce filing, the hotel receipts proving her lawyer was her lover. The motion was filed. An emergency appeal to vacate the divorce decree on the grounds of extrinsic fraud and conspiracy. The same court system that had chewed me up and spat me out was now forced to look at the evidence. A new hearing date was set, but this was only half the battle. Clearing my name and getting the house back meant nothing if my children still thought I was a monster. Sarah had poisoned them. I had to get them the antidote. My daughter Maya was 12. She was smart, just like my mother. She had a school-issued tablet. I was forbidden from contacting her, but the court order was based on lies, and I was a father desperate to save his children from a manipulator. Helios's team found a way. A ghost in the school district's IT department found a temporary hidden loophole in the tablet's security filter. I had one shot, one single message before the loophole was patched. I couldn't tell her about the cadre. I couldn't tell her about her grandfather. It was too much. I had to give her one simple, undeniable truth. I composed the email, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type. "My dearest Maya, I know you've been told I'm sick. I know you've been told I left you. That is a lie. Your mother told the court I was reckless and stole your money. The truth is, she was the one hiding it." I attached one file, not the hotel receipts, not the audio clips, just one bank statement. The statement from the secret offshore account in her name, showing the $200,000 deposit. The date was clearly visible, 6 months before she even asked for a divorce. I finished the email. "I have never stopped loving you, not for 1 second. Don't believe me, Maya. Just look at the date. I am fighting for you and I will never, ever stop. I love you." Dad, I hit send. The digital feed Helios had was anonymous. I couldn't see Maya, but I could see that the email was delivered. It was opened. And then, nothing. For 2 agonizing days, I heard nothing. Then, on the third day, a new search query appeared from Maya's tablet. She wasn't just searching for games anymore, she was searching for the name of Sarah's lawyer. She was searching perjury, and she was searching for my name. The seed of doubt had been planted. The poison was starting to wear off. This was it. The day of the hearing. I wasn't there in person. My lawyer insisted I stay hidden, stay safe. Instead, I was in the basement, that cold, damp room that had become my war room. I was staring at 2 laptops. On the left, a secure text-only chat from my new lawyer, giving me real-time updates from the courtroom. On the right, Helios's dashboard, a complex screen monitoring the cadre's internal communications, which were currently buzzing like a hornet's nest. The first message from my lawyer blinked onto the screen. We are on. Sarah is here. She looks terrified. Her lawyer isn't with her. He's testifying against her. My heart hammered against my ribs. Helios's plan had worked perfectly. Faced with disbarment and criminal charges, Sarah's lover, the shark, had done what sharks do. He saved himself. He had cut a deal with the state bar and the DA, agreeing to testify against Sarah in exchange for a lighter sentence. He was painting her as the obsessive, manipulative mastermind who had seduced him and forced him to hide the money. It was another lie, but this time, it was a lie that was setting me free. My lawyer's feed updated. He's on the stand. He's confessing everything: the affair, the hidden account, the conspiracy to commit perjury. He just handed the judge the original, unaltered bank statements. Sarah is sobbing, not sadness, rage. At that exact moment, the right-hand screen, Helios's dashboard, flashed bright red. Targets are moving, the alert read. They took the bait. This was the second part of the plan. While Sarah's world was ending, we were setting a trap for the cadre. They were desperate to find the source of the leaks, so we gave them one. We had manufactured a fake trader, a mid-level executive at their bank, and planted evidence that he was about to sell the entire USB drive to the journalist, Cygnus. The meeting was set for a supposedly abandoned warehouse in Brooklyn. They're not sending lawyers. Helios's voice crackled in my earpiece. They're sending their cleaners, a private, off-the-books wetwork team. They're not going to negotiate. But they weren't meeting a journalist, and the warehouse wasn't abandoned. Thanks to Cygnus's anonymous tips to an honest FBI division, one we knew wasn't on the cadre's payroll, that warehouse was wired for sound and video, surrounded by a federal tactical team. My eyes darted back to the court feed. My lawyer typed, "Judge is reading his decision. He's livid. He's vacating the original decree, on all counts. He's calling Sarah's actions a criminal manipulation of the court. It's over. We won." I couldn't even breathe. I had just gotten my life back. He's restoring your full sole custody of the children, the next message said. A warrant is being issued for Sarah's arrest for perjury and conspiracy to commit fraud. She's being detained in the courtroom. I stared at the words. Sole custody. Warrant for her arrest. The woman who had laughed at me, who had stolen my children and my home, was in handcuffs. Now, Helios shouted in my ear. On the right-hand screen, a local news feed, tipped off by Helios, suddenly went live. The headline, Breaking News, FBI and Major Sting Operation in Brooklyn. The video showed armed agents swarming the warehouse. They were pulling men out in handcuffs, and these weren't just thugs. One of them, his face pale and stunned, was a name I recognized from my father's drive. A senior vice president of the cadre's main bank. He wasn't just a white-collar criminal. He was now the ringleader of a violent, armed kidnapping and assault team, caught red-handed. The firewall between their legitimate business and their criminal underworld had just been breached. I sat back, the glow of the two screens illuminating the dark basement. In a single hour, Sarah had lost her freedom, her money, and my children. And the cadre had just walked, live on camera, into a federal trap. It wasn't over. But the war had been won. I was free. I could finally go and get my kids. The basement door opened, and for the first time in months, it wasn't the damp, cold air that hit me. It was the sunlight. I walked out of that bunker and into a new life. The legal process to formally get Maya and Leo back was a blur, but with Sarah facing multiple criminal charges and her entire case built on proven fraud, there was no resistance. The first time I saw them, my heart felt like it was going to burst. I didn't say anything about the cadre or the trial or their mother's arrest. There would be time for hard conversations and healing later. I just knelt on the sidewalk, and my two children, who had been lied to and manipulated, ran into my arms. "I missed you, Dad," Maya whispered, her voice thick. "I knew you wouldn't leave us." That single sentence was worth more than the $5 million house. Speaking of the house, I got it back. But I didn't want it. It was a monument to a life that was a lie. I sold it, along with everything inside. I took that money, the cash my mother had left me, and the significant reward money I received for my anonymous tips to the SEC and FBI, and I moved. Far away. I gave half of it to Helios and his network of ghosts, funding their continued quiet war to dismantle the cadre from the shadows. They're still out there, fighting for the other victims. As for me, I'm not that broken man in a basement anymore. I'm just Dad. I live in a quiet town by the coast. I'm using my new resources to build a new business, one that helps people, a foundation that provides honest legal aid to victims of systemic financial fraud. My father's legacy wasn't just a list of criminals. It was a roadmap of how not to live. My mother's legacy wasn't just fear, it was survival. I've combined them. I'm finally living a life that is truly my own, and my children are safe, happy, and thriving. They know the truth, or at least the parts they need to know. And they are resilient. They are strong. Just like their grandmother. My ex-wife, Sarah? She took a plea deal. Her greed and her lies cost her everything. She lost the house, the money, her lover, and, worst of all, her children. She's serving a sentence for perjury and fraud. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about that day in court when she laughed in my face. I'm sure she's not laughing now. And that's my story. It's a story about how a life can be shattered in an instant, but how the truth, no matter how deep it's buried, will always find a way to the surface. I have to ask you, did I do the right thing? I used a hidden network and played a dangerous game. What would you have done in my place? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy stories like this where justice is served, no matter how complicated the path, make sure to like on this video and subscribe so you never miss another story.